Hello, 6th grade math students. This is Chapter 6.4, Real-World Problems with Percents. In this lesson, we're going to combine what we've learned about finding percents and finding percents of quantities to solve some word problems involving things like sales tax, interests, commissions, and interest rates. So let's get started. In her last basketball game, Julie scored 18 of her team's 48 points. What percent of her team's points did Julie score? There are two different methods for solving this. Let's start with method 1. In method 1, we'll set up Julie's points as a fraction of the whole team's points. So Julie's points out of her team's points. That would equal 18 out of 48, which can be reduced to 3 over 8. When we change that into a percentage form, we want to take that times 100, which would give us 300 over 8. Now we divide 300 by 8 to get 37 and a half. So Julie scored 37 and a half of the team's percent of the team's points. Now let's do method 2. Method 2 works like this. 48 points equals 100%. So 1 point is 100 over 48% of the total score. So 18 points would equal 100 over 48 times 18. Which when you work it all out becomes 37.5%. And if we wanted to know the percent of the team points that the rest of Julie's team scored, we would simply take 100% minus 37.5% to equal 62.5%. Let's go on to the practice problem. Try this problem on your own. Mr. Jefferson is making 80 cups of fruit punch. He uses 52 cups of juice and the rest is sparkling water. What percent is juice and what percent is water? You may use either method 1 or method 2. Remember, method 1 has you set up the problem as a fraction. So what fraction of the whole is fruit juice, and then what fraction of the whole is water. And then method 2 has you set it up as 80 cups equaling 100%. And calculating from there what percentage each 1 cup would be. Use whichever method you prefer. Press pause while you do your work, and I'll be back with a new problem when you're finished. Our next problem has us calculate tax. Stephen and his family had dinner in a restaurant. The total cost of the food was $68.50. And an 8% sales tax is added to the bill. What's the total bill? There are two methods for solving this. Method 1 involves using a fraction. So if our sales tax is 8% of $68.50, we would take 8 over 100, because that's what 8% really means, right? 8 over 100 times $68.50, so that we can calculate how much the sales tax would be. So 8 times $68.50 divided by 100 gives us an answer of, let's see, $5.48. I did use my calculator for that. And then we need to add this amount, which is the tax, to the total cost. So it would be $68.50 plus $5.48 to give us a grand total of $73.98. There is a little shortcut you can use here as well if you would prefer. Instead of adding the cost of the bill and the tax at the end, you can account for the full price of the meal by setting up your problem like this. Instead of using 8%, you would use 108%, because that would include the full cost plus the additional 8% that you're adding for the meal, times $68.50. And this will give you the same answer, $73.98, just with one step eliminated or rearranging the steps. So in this case, instead of adding total cost of meal plus cost of tax, we added 100% cost of the meal, oops, not dollar sign, 100% the cost of the meal plus the 8% cost of the tax to get 108%. So you can do that either way works. Okay, now I'll show you method 2. We'll set up method 2 like this. 100% of the cost of our meal equals $68.50. 1% of the cost of our meal is 0.6850. See where that comes from? We're dividing 68.50 by 100%. Then we're going to take 8% equals 0.6850 times 8, which will give us $5.48. Once again, we simply add that to our original cost, $68.50 plus $5.48 gives us $73.98. You can use that same shortcut here if you'd like. Instead of taking 0.6850 times 8, you could take 0.6850 times 108 to give you the full cost of the meal. It truly doesn't matter in which order you do it. Do whichever works best for your brain. The final step of this problem is to check for reasonableness. So does 8% being equal to about $5.50 make sense? Well, sure it does. $68.50 is pretty close to $70. 10% of that would be about $7. So it kind of makes sense that 8% would be, a little bit less than $6, right? Okay. So the estimate makes sense. It seems reasonable. Let's move on to the next problem. This next problem asks us to work in reverse. We know that Jackie bought a pair of shoes. The shoes cost $52. And the sales tax cost $2.60. The sales tax was calculated based on the cost of the shoes. So, what was the sales tax rate? Okay, we can figure this out. We'll set up our problem like this. The cost of the shoes was $52, and that represents 100% of the cost. Now, in this occasion, we don't want to figure out what 1% is worth, like we did in the last problem, so we could figure out the value of the sales tax. This time we want to know what $1 is worth, because the information we have is in dollars, so we need to work from that. So our sales tax rate is going to be 100% over 52, okay? So we know that the cost of our sales tax was $2.60, so we'll take $2.60 times 100 over 52, which will give us a sales tax rate of 260 divided by 52. Okay, that'll be 5%. So our sales tax rate is 5%. So again, let's check for reasonableness. If the cost of our shoes is right around $50, a 10% tax rate would be about $5, right? And 260 is about half of $5, or 5% is about half of 10%. So sure, it's totally reasonable. Okay. All right, let's go on to a problem for you to work on your own. Here are 2 practice problems to try on your own. In problem 1, we have a laptop that costs $720. The sales tax is 7%. What's the total cost of your bill? And in the second problem, we have Dave's lunch costing $78.50, and we're adding a tax of $4.71. So what was the sales tax rate? In other words, what percent of $78.50 is $4.71? All right, good luck. Press pause while you work, and I'll see you in a moment for another idea. Here's another example of a word problem that uses percent. A sixth grade class sells magazines to raise funds for a charity. 8% of the sales will be donated to the charity. If the class donates $400 to the charity, what is the dollar amount of their magazine sales? Okay, I think a picture might help here. So if we have a total dollar amount that represents 100%, we know that 8% of it equals $400. And this quantity is unknown. Okay, so what do we start with? We start with 8% equaling $400 because we know that's true. That means 1% will equal $50 or 400 divided by 8, giving us $50. So 100% would be $50 times 100 or $5,000. So let's check for reasonableness. Does the answer make sense? Well, let's apply some simple logic here. 8% is pretty close to 10%. 10% of $5,000 would be about $500. So $400 seems totally reasonable as 8%, correct? Yeah, I think this is reasonable. Okay, let's go on to your practice problem. All right, give this one a try. Mr. Diaz earns a 3% commission on all of his sales. If he earns $2,880 in commission, what is the dollar amount of his total sales? Use exactly the same technique that we used for the magazine sale problem, and you'll find the right answer. Press pause, and there is one last idea in this chapter before we've completed 6.4. Our final idea for this chapter is interest. When you deposit money in a savings account, the bank pays you interest on the money. The interest rate is the rate at which your money earns interest in a given amount of time. So it's a percentage that you earn back over a given amount of time based on the amount of money you have in your account. So let's work through an example problem. Marina deposits $1,500 into a savings account. The bank will pay her 5% interest at the end of a year. Okay, so she's going to earn 5% interest in 1 year. How much interest will Marina receive? Well, 5% of $1,500 for 1 year. We'd set that up by simply putting all of our numbers together. 5% or 5 over 100 of $1,500 over our time frame, 1 year. When we work out that problem, we get a final answer of $75. Okay, so Marina earns $75 in interest. That means the amount of money in her account at the end of the year is $1,575, assuming she hasn't added any money or taken any money out. Okay, let's do another interest problem. The Astronomy Society has $24,000 in an account that has an interest rate of 3% per year. How much interest will the Astronomy Society earn at the end of 1/2 of a year? Okay, once again, we're going to set up our interest equals the amount of money times the interest rate times the time. So our interest rate equals $24,000 times 3 over 100, our interest rate, times 1/2 of our year. So our total amount of interest is $360. So the Astronomy Society will earn $360 in interest at the end of half a year. If we were asked to give the total amount of money in their account, it would be $24,360. Let's finish up with 2 practice problems for you. Okay, folks, let's finish up Chapter 6.4 with these 2 final practice problems. Both ask you to calculate the interest earned on an account, given the annual interest rate or the interest earned per year. I'll see you tomorrow to go over these problems with you, and we'll do more work with percent word problems. Have a great night.